Well, hello, and let's talk about sulforaphane today. You might have heard me talk about sulforaphane in the past because it is definitely one of our hero ingredients or substances, if you will, in the journey of estrogen dominance. As you know, I'm a big advocate of changing your diet as a foundational thing for estrogen dominance and getting on the elimination diet, making sure that you are sleeping enough, you're pooping enough. Um, Pooping because when you're constipated, you're recycling all those estrogens, right? So we don't want that. And I find that supplements are when you add on supplements to a clean diet and a fairly healthy lifestyle, like moderate exercise, you're sleeping well, like I said, you're pooping well, you are doing a diet where your body is just like, woohoo, it's really craving, it's enjoying, it's loving it. Then when you add supplements in, it's like that's when the magic starts happening. I think I have a lot of, one of the things that I often talk about is how I really despaired being in private practice. I'm not anymore, but when I used to be in private practice and have clients coming to my office with bags and bags of supplements. Like sometimes people will bring in a travel bag full of supplements. And then when I asked them, what have you done to change your diet? Right? The answer was nothing. And to no surprise that the effect or the effectiveness and the results that the person was getting wasn't always as expected. That's why they come to see me. And it was sad to see that even some functional doctors and naturopaths would put people on a lot of supplements, but without changing their diet. And to no surprise, this is the reason why it's not really working all that effectively. So I just want to preface it that whatever I'm talking about today, I'm talking about sulforaphane, which is an amazing substance that's found in broccoli sprouts. And yes, you can get it from sprouts, but there is a trick to it, and I'm going to talk about that, is that when you add on sulforaphane to a really clean diet, it's just when the magic starts happening, okay? So today's video, I want to talk about like the quality of sulforaphane. They're not all the same. They all can be very different from each other. And so what to look out for. I want to explain how sulforaphane is created in the body. And because you can't actually find sulforaphane in a supplement, it gets converted to sulforaphane. And I'm going to explain that in a second. And then what about food? What about broccoli sprouts? Why not just eat broccoli sprouts and nothing else, right? And forget about the supplements. So let's talk about all of that because I have found that if you have gone on a fairly good diet, like you have my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, you're on the elimination diet, you were doing a lot of things already, but you're still not making really good progress with estrogen dominance, meaning you're still having like a lot of you're still having a lot of symptoms of estrogen dominance, then this is the time now to consider adding supplements as well. You guys are saying there is no audio. Sound is off. Really? Okay, that's let's see whether. Okay, so a lot of you are saying there's no sound. Okay, is this is on? Can you guys hear me now? Is that, yeah, I know on Facebook it is. Sound is gone. Shoot. Okay. Hey, you guys. So I apologize. So I'm doing broadcasts on a few channels. I'm just going to get out from Instagram and then just do it again because that's just really that's a bummer. Okay. So sorry about that because I'm broadcasting to Instagram as well, just to kind of get the result, get the coverage from both sources. Okay. So in the meantime, while I'm doing that, I would love to hear from you. For those of you who are watching on YouTube or Facebook, what are the symptoms of estrogen dominance you might be experiencing? And I'm curious about that. Hey, so I'm back on Instagram. Can you guys let me know if the sound is okay? Can you hear me okay? So this is just a question for Instagram. Can Instagram folks hear me okay? Just let me know. So yeah, so what's what we're going to talk about is sulforaphane. What is the, okay, cool. So the sound is back. Awesome. So the what I'd like to, let's just maybe start off with what is sulforaphane? What is the whole purpose of sulforaphane? Why is it so important? And the answer is that sulforaphane is a substance that's found in a lot of the cruciferous vegetables. So cruciferous vegetables are the brassica family, also known as the Brassiaceae. And so vegetables in that family would include things like cauliflower, broccoli sprouts, of course, Brussels sprouts, arugula, all your radishes, collard greens, watercress. By the way, spinach is not a cruciferous vegetable. Okay, so just to make it clear. And so they're so high in both in methane, but also very high in not sulforaphane. A lot of people say it's sulforaphane. It's actually not sulforaphane. They're really high in something called oh dear. Okay. Glucoraphanin. Okay. And so glucoraphanin is really, that's what occurs in all these vegetables. Now, the food that you will have the highest concentration of glucoraphanin is broccoli sprouts. And this is not, as I just want to make it clear, it's not broccoli. Broccoli also contains glucoraphanin and which will convert to sulforaphane, but it's not as high it is going to be in the sprouts. As well as other sprouts, this is not a common question that we get is, what about other sprouts like alfalfa or pea shoots or other sprouts? And the answer is no. It's only broccoli sprouts that contain specifically sulforaphane. So what is so amazing about sulforaphane? You know, for those of you who missed my initial part about talking about it on Instagram, I was just saying that when you combine supplements together with a clean diet, that's when magic starts happening. And so anti-inflammatory diet, sleeping well, pooping well, right? So you're pooping, you're eliminating all those estrogens, you're not recycling them back into your body. And then if you're still struggling with symptoms of estrogen dominance, then this is the time to consider adding a few supplements. Now, in our industry, there is generally a belief that DIM, D-I-M, dialdehydomethane, is like the estrogen buster, right? A lot of actually Amazon product listings are actually literally referring to it as estrogen buster, which is just such a stupid name. But not just that, it's an incomplete, myopic, and misleading way of talking about a substance. Because DIM, what DIM does is that DIM upregulates your phase 1 liver detoxification. And your liver has got two parts to its detoxification process, phase 1 and phase 2. For estrogen, as well as any other compound to be evacuated, both of these phases need to be working really well. So DIM upregulates your phase 1, so you like open up the floodgates. But then you also need something in phase 2 of your liver detoxification. This is where now these compounds have been broken up and they need to be married off and coupled up with something else and then evacuated in the form of your stool. Now, if you don't have that something else to bind them up in phase 2, this is where a lot of the issues begin to happen, because women who take DIM might say it worked for a while, then it stopped working. Worked for a while, and then I started getting really worse. My estrogen symptoms have become even worse. Some women will say, I take it and it just doesn't have any result to me. Some women take it and right away they start feeling really crummy. So this is because you've just upregulated your phase 1 liver detoxification. So you need something for your second part support. And this is where sulforaphane comes in, and that is the substance that is full of sulfur, and it's going to help you to bind up and support the sulfation pathway, which is one of the pathways in phase 2 that evacuates and binds up estrogens to evacuate them. The second pathway in the liver is called the glucuronation pathway. And that's where the other substance called calcium D-glucarate becomes really important. So I don't want to talk too much about calcium D-glucarate today. I just want to focus our conversation on sulforaphane, because it is really one of those substances that not only will help you with symptoms of estrogen dominance, and by the way, who here has taken sulforaphane from us to somebody else and has had some improvement? Generally, the symptoms, the comments that we hear from women is like, finally, my PMS has gotten better. My breasts are not as sensitive. I don't have, my fibrocystic breasts are getting better. My lumps are shrinking. Did you guys also know that when I was writing my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, I also did a lot of research on the cancer chapter in the book, on breast cancer. And there is some incredible research that I have come across that how sulforaphane kills stem cells in cancer cells in breast cancer cases, right? Which is like so incredibly powerful. And so, that's part of the reason why I'm so fascinated by it. But it's also sulforaphane also helps with the NF2 pathway for inflammation as well. And so for those of you who have issues with inflammation, sulforaphane also has an anti-inflammatory effect. So it's pretty fascinating, the spectrum of things that sulforaphane can help you with. Now, there's something that I really need you to pay attention to when you are shopping for supplements. Like before you go and run off and buy a supplement, there's a few things I need you to know. And if you're watching this on Facebook and Instagram, I'm gonna share my screen. I want to show you a chart, and then for those of you who are watching on Instagram, I'm gonna be descriptive enough for you to get the idea. So one of the things that we have done is, as you know, I do make supplements, right? It's called Wellena, it's the Wellena range. The thing is that, I feel like first and foremost, I am my own customer. As I'm the customer number one, and I feel like I am, the customer who has to be happy, and I'm super unhappy with most of the time with a lot of things. So it's very hard to please me. So you have to remember that when I make supplements is because, especially for estrogen dominance, I make it for myself in the first place. And I always think like, if this is good enough for me, it's going to be good enough for you. And so quality of supplements is one of the things that I really, really pay a lot of attention to. So when we started looking at working on Broca Power, which by the way, our sulforaphane is called Broca Power. Okay. And so Broca Power, then we started looking at, where do we source the material from? An interesting thing that came out was that not all broccoli seeds, which most of the sulforaphane or the glucoraphanin is extracted from broccoli seeds. These seeds, the quality of these seeds and their content of sulforaphane was varying so vastly. As you can see this on the chart that I'm showing on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're on Instagram, it's okay. Just imagine it's a chart that shows you the amount of glucoraphanin. I'm going to talk about glucoraphanin just in a second. That's a precursor for sulforaphane. There's a raw material that's going to get converted into sulforaphane. Okay, so just stay with me. What is measurable in a seed is glucoraphanin. So the glucoraphanin, it's not like, I wish I could say that inorganic seeds that you find at Whole Foods on a farmer's market, it's high. But those ones that you find in some other, not so great quality supermarkets, it's not great. Nothing to do with that. It was all over the map. And so what became really important for us is to source these broccoli seeds from a source that can prove with labs that the glucoraphanin content originally in the seeds is very high. And this is where this chart shows. This is from a study, by the way. Kamalani, if we can remove the bottom banner, I want to just show folks. This is actually from a study. You can see that Fahey and et al. And there's a reference. We are referencing the study there. So it's an independent study, nothing to do with my product, with my supplier or contract manufacturing, nothing like that. It's an independent study that just shows, how different from fresh whole broccoli all the way to different seeds, how the glucoraphanin content can vary. And so needless to say, obviously, we went to source our seeds extract coming from the highest source, this is where the circle is, the Wellena sourced broccoli seeds. We are getting the extract from there. Okay, so this is the first thing, is to know where your manufacturer is getting the seeds from. And, most of them will tell you from amazing sources, right? But then they don't really have a lot of studies to show that. In order to make these label claims, by the way, Amazon is getting really, really tough on quality of supplements, which is a good thing for everybody, for the industry, overall. It's a pain in the butt for us. It's very expensive because we need to do a lot of lab testing. But it's actually, I think in the long term is good for you as the customer, is good for us because it's going to shake up the industry and get rid of all the shysters in a supplement world. So so when we were working on our product, one of the things that we needed to do was to do lab testing in order to make these claims on the label, to make sure that what we are claiming is really true. So one other thing I want to mention, I need you to understand, is that so glucoraphanin is one thing you want to make sure that is very high, right? But then the second thing we need to consider is what makes the conversion happen. So the other thing I want to share with you let me just pull out my other slide, and that's in our newsletter that went out today. You might have seen this. Is this chart here that shows on top, and Instagram, I can't share a screen on Instagram, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be descriptive so you get the idea. Is that glucoraphanin that is contained in broccoli seeds needs to be then converted to sulforaphane. There's a few mechanisms that matter here. One is that if you are eating broccoli sprouts, you need to chew them, okay? So that's why I'm making like a smoothie out of it. And by the way, there is a broccoli sprout smoothie in the book in here that has no sugar in it whatsoever. It tastes really good. And as well as stomach acid. So having sufficient stomach acid is going to definitely make the conversion happen from glucoraphanin over to sulforaphane. But the other thing that can happen that we can control, and we can put that into a supplement and put that into a capsule, such as this one here. This is our seed right here, is vitamin C. And just research shows that just 60 milligrams of vitamin C is going to facilitate the conversion and improve it by 70%, as well as mustard seeds, which contain an enzyme called myrosinase. So this is where the chart shows you that with the help of myrosinase as an enzyme, vitamin C, naturally you're going to have stomach acid, right? And the conversion from glucoraphanin, so the raw material broccoli seed, over to sulforaphane is going to be most effective. And that's what our supplement contains. I would suggest, like, if you are, if you want to support us, I would deeply appreciate it. That will be wonderful. Broca Power is the name of the product. You can find it on welena.com. And if you have your own favorite brand that you would rather support, that's okay too. Just make sure that the glucoraphanin is stated very clearly. Make sure that it's got the enzyme called myrosinase. Make sure it's got some vitamin C, and that is manufactured in a GMP facility that has got all the testing done, so the claims are what they are. You guys, supplements are unregulated industry. If a lot of contract manufacturers don't even ask what you're putting on the label; they just print it, and it's done. So it's a wild west, and it's getting better and better in terms of regulation, but not always. And it's not there yet. What's the website? It's Heidi. It's my website. It's welena.com. You can see the name on top there, in the right upper corner. And Kamalani will also share it as well. Okay, so we have our Broca Power in our store. You can get it on welena.com. And that's where I have found that, you guys, you can read the reviews there and see how it's helping women. But everything from hot flashes, better periods, less fibrocystic breast, fibroid shrinking, having better PMS, easier periods, having less mood swings, and the list goes on. Then it's all part of the equation. The reason why we put Broca Power as part of our estrogen reset kit is because it also contains DIM, and I'm not saying DIM is not going to help. It just depends on what your liver is in need of support of. If your liver needs a little bit more phase 1 support detoxification, then DIM is necessary. Sulforaphane is, if your liver needs more phase 2 liver support, then most likely your body might benefit a lot more from sulforaphane. Okay, so why don't we just take some questions for a few minutes. And Aliyah is asking, is it okay to take those two if I'm currently taking progesterone? Absolutely, yes. So the answer, let me just elaborate on this because it's a good question. There's two types of estrogen dominance. One is estrogen dominance. The way you break down the estrogens to clean estrogens and dirty estrogens is unfavorable. You're producing too many dirty estrogens. And sulforaphane can help with that because it helps with that liver detoxification phase 2. The other form of estrogen dominance is when you have too much of estradiol as compared to progesterone. That ratio is off. And that's when taking progesterone for this kind of estrogen dominance can really help. So knowing which kind of estrogen dominance can help, because that will dictate then which form of protocol you want to pursue more. And depending on, back to the question, if you're taking progesterone, is helping you, great. But if, a lot of women take progesterone for estrogen dominant symptoms, but their symptoms don't improve, the fibroid is still there, the breasts are still very tender. Why? Is because you're having the first time of estrogen dominance, which I call it the ugly breakup. Is the ugly breakup when the breakup of estrogens to the clean and dirty is unfavorable. And you can improve that by optimizing your liver health. Okay, so Kamalani, why don't we just pop a few questions on the screen and I'll cover those. My Welena Broco Power arrived yesterday in a plastic bottle and I had muscle cramps, shin splints, numbness after taking it. Is it possible to have too much? I'm glad it worked for some people. I have a diagnosis of estrogen dominance and was looking forward to it. I was sad to have a bad reaction right away. Yeah, so there is a saying in herbalism and in food nutrition as well, one person's food is not a person's poison, right? One person's herb is a healer, another person, the same herb is it's not a healer, right? It's a poison. So I would suggest to, first of all, make sure that you have not changed anything else and it really is the Broco Power. And after that, take it another day and then see whether you're getting the same reaction or not. It's likely that, it's possible. I mean, it's not likely, but it's possible that somebody can have that occasional side effect. Good example of that is, for example, Vitex, chaseberry is a very well-known herb that helps to boost progesterone levels in many countries. Like in Germany, for example, Vitex is given as a progesterone booster right off the bat, even before progesterone topical or oral is prescribed. Yet, for example, I can't take it. It gives me very bad side effects. I get mid-cycle spotting. My symptoms get a lot worse. I feel so off, right? I just can't take it. All right, next question. I have an allergy to sulfur. What should I do? Yeah, that's got nothing to, it's not gonna, I mean, if you're talking about like sulfur drugs, if you put it this way, if you're able to do broccoli sprouts, let's say in a smoothie or in a salad, you should be able to do the supplement as well. So you need to test it out that way. If you are sensitive to sulfur drugs, that's a different thing. How do you know if you have estrogen dominance? Which estrogen dominance do you have? You basically test it. That's one thing. You can do Dutch test, DUTCH. You can order that through a functional practitioner and get it tested. The other thing is the easiest thing to do is like what that lady on Instagram was saying, is to add, for example, progesterone. And if symptoms don't go away, then you know that the estrogen dominant symptoms are coming from most likely is not because of the estrogen progesterone ratio, but it's because of how you're breaking down estrogens. Is there any condition when one should not take sulforaphane? I am postmenopausal with DCIS diagnosis, estrogen receptor positive. Also, is DIM and appropriate both? So there is no contraindications that I know of. If you're on any medications, that it's your responsibility to check on with your practitioner on if this medication does have if there's anything that interferes with metabolism of that. The sulforaphane, I have found that it is there's another supplement that we carry called calcium D-glucarate that also upregulates phase 2 liver detoxification, but that works a lot more with drugs than sulforaphane would on the sulfation pathway. So From what I have seen so far, there isn't many. If you're on medications, like I said, you're going to check with your provider. If you're working with a functional oncologist, I suggest checking on that. There is a lot of research that shows sulforaphane's role in breast cancer prevention and mitigation. And so I talked about it at the beginning of this video as well. And I referenced a lot of those studies in my book as well. I'm going to pop over to Instagram. There's a question about my training and where was I trained. So yeah, so a lot of, there isn't one on, like, if you want to get trained on that. So one of the biggest programs that I've done that was super helpful was Andre Nakayama's program. It's called the Functional Nutrition Institute, I think she calls it now, and is the full body system. That's like, that was the foundational to my knowledge. Is there a lab test you would recommend to determine hormone levels and specifically which type of estrogen dominate? Yes, so that will be Dutch, is a really helpful one. If your practitioner doesn't do it, then the other one you can do is saliva testing, and that is done through either Labrix or ZRT labs. That's saliva. It shows you different markers, a different breakdown, but it's also very helpful to see what's going on. What can help with cease period for someone already in 40? So it depends what caused the cessation of the period. If you have my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, there's a whole chapter here on lacking periods and how to reinstate it. 40 seems like a little bit young for total cessation of a period, but you also have to understand where is this cessation coming from. If it's coming from estrogen dominance, then there's a lot of things you can do to bring your period back. I have missed periods in 39. I have been taking progesterone for a few months and normal periods have not begun, only light spotting for a day or two, but my normal periods have gone absent. So this is where you want to look at estrogen. So for you to have a healthy cycle, it's not just progesterone, but it's also estrogen. So it could be that you're very low in estrogen and it's worthwhile testing to see what is happening, whether it's how you're breaking them down or whether your overall estrogen level is low. One natural way of bringing up your estrogen is by incorporating flaxseed into your diet. 2 tablespoons of flaxseed a day can tremendously help. Flaxseed contains naturally occurring estrogens called phytoestrogens. They're very delicate. That could be something that could help you. Can you clarify in which case would you would also need CDG? So CDG is calcium D-glucarate. That's a great question. So you need it when you're, so first of all, you know, we have this estrogen reset kit, right? 3 supplements that really help when you're already on a clean diet, you're adding these in, and those 3 would be DIM, and then sulforaphane, which is broca power that I'm talking about today. And then the third one is calcium D-glucarate. In calcium D-glucarate, and so the way I suggest for you to start taking these supplements is to space them out from each other. Taking one, starting off with one, it's up to you whether it's DIM or sulforaphane. Start with one, wait for a week, right? Take it for a week. Don't incorporate anything else. Then add on the next one, and then add on the next one, because then you really see the effects. Or if you're having any reactions to something, like somebody was mentioning, maybe broca power is not her favorite supplement, or her body is not really responding very well to it. So that's something to consider. How do you know if you need it is when your symptoms of estrogen dominance are still very prevalent, and none of the other supplements, DIM hasn't worked, sulforaphane hasn't worked, your diet hasn't worked, right? You're pooping, you're sleeping, you're doing all these things, you reduce your coffee, and you're still highly estrogenic, your symptoms are still screaming. This is the time to incorporate calcium D-glucarate. I want to just give you a quick example. I have a friend who has struggled with extremely sensitive breasts, so much so she couldn't put on a bra like about a week before her period. She couldn't touch or be touched. She's a climber, so she couldn't do any climbing during this time, you know, and no exercise whatsoever. God forbid, like even bouncing or walking, anything that would be like bouncing her breast. And she had gone from doctor to doctor, naturopath to naturopath. And as much as she's taking a lot of supplements that I mentioned, plus a lot more, the one supplement she had not been put on is calcium D-glucarate. So when I looked at her protocol, and I said to her, "That's the one thing that's missing in my view," and she took it. She put a lot of resistance around it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like the name. It's not like a sexy, interesting name. I don't know. She waited for a few months before she did it, and eventually I got a text message from her, and she said, "You know what? I took it, and like literally 3 hours later, my pain was gone." So this is really when you know what is really missing and which pathway in your liver is compromised. So this is really, it boils down to what pathway needs more support to detoxify you from those estrogen. Does DIM make you bloated due to its cruciferous vegetable? No, it shouldn't. So if cruciferous vegetables make you bloated, then a couple of things you can try is, first of all, don't do cauliflower, because cauliflower is also high in FODMAPs. You can make sure you cook them through, don't eat them raw. And those are some of the great pointers. And I have not seen a lot of people reacting to DIM when they react to cruciferous vegetables. I think it's because a lot of the other like fiber and stuff is removed. Okay, let's see. What other questions do we have on Kamalani on Facebook and YouTube? Okay, estrogen dominance fluctuating month to month. I used to have breast pain, but now I'm not experiencing it as much. Yeah, so month to month. Well, I mean, throughout the month, if you're still cycling, it certainly can change, right? Because estrogen goes up and down, and during a period is super low, both progesterone and estrogen, and it goes up, then it goes down a little, and then goes back up again. So of course, during the month, it definitely, that's why I was giving an example of like my girlfriend who had super sensitive breasts, and many of you experience that, right? Mood change, migraines, PMS, and all of that happens before your period. But from month to month, no, I don't really see that so much unless you have done something. So you changed your diet, you're sleeping better, you change your skincare products, maybe your stress has reduced, you incorporated progesterone. There must have been something that must have changed. Okay. May have missed this, but what role does it play for fibroids, reducing estrogen? Should I be using combination with other supplements? So yeah, so if you don't have my book, I highly recommend getting Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. There's a whole chapter here on fibroids. And yes, so fibroids grow because of estrogen. And I want to just really qualify this. Let's not demonize estrogen, ladies, because it's a really important hormone for us to function. You will not be here listening to me and processing things in a cohesive way if you didn't have sufficient estrogen. Your sharpness of your mind, memory is estrogen is super important in those, as well as your bone health and skin health and cardiovascular health in women. Estrogen is key. You wouldn't have your periods if you did not have estrogen. So that is not the issue. The issue is how you break down estrogens. There's one form of estrogen dominance. And so when somebody has fibroids grow, fibroids develop blood flow to them, to that part of the uterus, and it's a thickening of the uterus tissue. And then the blood, of course, carries estrogen in it, right? So those dirty estrogens, those metabolites, which you can see those metabolites, how you're breaking down estrogens in the Dutch test, for example, that I mentioned before. And that's what causes the growth of the fibroid. So do you do that by reducing estrogen? No, not really. What you need to do is you need to make sure you're breaking down those estrogens correctly. And the organ that is hugely responsible for breaking down estrogens is your liver. So not surprisingly, part of the reason why a big part of my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, there's a whole liver chapter, just shows you what you can do to add and remove from your current lifestyle to really support your liver. And the supplements will work when combined with it, yes, but a diet is going to be equally important, especially supporting your liver during this time. Gonna just pop over to Instagram. Tony's asking, should you take Broca Power every day or only with symptoms? A good question. So I suggest to take it for 2-3 months. The supply here is for 60 days. So take it for 2 months, then you can stop it and see whether your symptoms return. Some women find that their body will adjust itself and is able to break down estrogens in a very positive way, and they don't need to go back on supplements. And other women feel like the minute they stop the supplement, 2 weeks later, everything is back. And so I'm definitely one of them, but it's because genetically I have number of gene mutations that compromise me tremendously in how I metabolize estrogen. And so this is the reason, part of the reason why I do this work is because of just how bad of an estrogen metabolizer I am, and that's why I've struggled with estrogen dominance my whole life. So someone like me who is a very poor estrogen metabolizer, if I travel, I may get off my supplements for a couple of weeks, and then symptoms do return, not as I would say aggressively and viciously, but certainly like my period is more painful. I tend to be more constipated when I stop my magnesium, for example, et cetera, et cetera. So then the supplements, I do need to get back on it, but it's very individual. So you need to try it and then decide for yourself. So I don't want to talk about like taking estrogens and stuff like that, because that's your question. Question for like about taking estrogen. You need to be monitored by a doctor. Taking even bioidentical estrogens, you need to be monitored by a doctor and be testing on a regular basis, especially if you have history of breast cancer or any kind of estrogenic cancers. So work with a provider on that. My spectrum of this conversation here, what I cover and what I want to talk about is food, herbs, because I'm an herbalist too, right? Cooking, culinary arts, as well as supplementation. Could you hold up the supplement again? Yeah, it's right here. It's called Broca Power. It's on our Wellena. It's WELLENA.com. Kamalani, if we can post the URL on Instagram as well. Okay, let's see. I'm going to take one more question before wrapping up. Let's see, Kamalani, is there any other question that I should be answering? I have armpit pain. Does it have to do with estrogen dominance? I don't know. You need to get this checked out. One thing that's interesting about armpits is that there's a very, your lymphatic system, and so your breasts have got a huge amount of lymphatic system. And so your lymph nodes, there is one of the lymph nodes you have right under your armpits. You have lymph nodes right here where if you had your tonsils removed, that's another node. You have them in your in between your thighs, on the inner thighs, right? So those are some of the locations. If you have pain there, I mean, it could be lymph nodes. You just have to get that checked out. I want to do one other question because I think it's a good one. Robin is saying, if we have estrogen dominance, then estrogen diminishes with age. How do we get heart health benefits and keep our skin from becoming thin and saggy? Is there a way to tighten it up? Yeah. So your skin health depends on testosterone, estrogen, right? Predominantly, of course, collagen, vitamin C is going to all help. If it's hormonally based, and especially thinning of the skin, those are like, it's even more so telling than the sagging itself, is definitely worthwhile looking into testosterone and estrogen. How do you boost that? So, there's a couple of ways. I've written a whole article about how to naturally boost estrogen. And so you can go to hormonesbalance.com and take a look at that article, how to boost estrogens naturally. I talk about flaxseed there, specific herbs like red clover, dong quai, which is Angelica and sinensis. Those are some of the things that you can do right off the bat. They contain phytoestrogens. For some women, it's enough to bring their estrogens up higher to start seeing the benefits, including on the skin. Now, if it's because of low testosterone in women are producing adrenal glands. And so supporting your adrenal glands is going to be vital. And you do that with magnesium, vitamin C. Vitamin C is also going to help you tremendously with collagen production, both taken internally and applied externally. Like, for example, our skincare line, that's why our skincare line has got vitamin C derived from amla berry, also known as the Indian gooseberry, because vitamin C topically and then also internally helps you build your own collagen. So those are some of the things that you can do. If that doesn't work, then the other route is to work with Getting on bioidentical hormones. I mean, that's another thing that you can, if worse comes to worse, that could be another route to take. Okay. All right, you guys, I hope this was helpful for you today, just to understand a little bit more about sulforaphane. And just I want to kind of wrap this up for today. If you're buying sulforaphane in the form of a supplement, then look for the amount of glucoraphanin it contains. Look at the potential for sulforaphane that it claims. It should contain vitamin C and also an enzyme called myrosinase that's going to help the conversion of the raw material of the seed, which is called glucoraphanin, over to sulforaphane. And so those are the things that really matter in a supplement that's going to guarantee you that's going to be a lot better supplement, that is going to be worth your money, and is actually going to produce some results versus buying expensive junk. All right. Thanks everyone for being here today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. My weekend is starting tonight, and I will see you sometime next week. Bye for now.